Okay. We're talking about anthropology tonight from the point of view of a scientific approach to the problem. And so here's how anthropology might be viewed as a scientist might look at it, some scientists. We would look at a culture. Does anybody have any ideas of what might be done? What you think the methods might be? Do you want to guess at it? Yeah, try it.
A possible comparison to some other known system.
Yes, that's the way to do it. What you do is you take an area, we'll take a rough idea of an island, and we'll put a tribe here. And we'll say, well, they eat fish, they use this area of the water for fishing, they pick their crops from this area of the forest, the bananas, and they get their root plants from this area of the forest, and they make their boats, they get their building material from this area of the forest, and they get their water from this area. And so this is the area of resource supply. Then you deal with the population, actually how many people exist in the island, and then you draw functional connections between the tribe and its real physical needs, water, food, fish. You draw all those things, and then you measure the amount of work done to accumulate a pile of food so high. Anybody doesn't understand that? If you got 100 people and they have to put out so many man hours to gather the fruit and the bananas, you measure the efficiency ratio of the tribe. That is, how much work they have to do to get a potato. If you have to walk over the hill, plant the seeds, and take all day to bring it back, that's a hell of a lot. You use up a potato and a half of energy to get a potato. So you measure the efficiency, how much energy they put out to get the job done. Like if you're dying of thirst, and you have to, there's a canteen of water on top of a mountain in the desert. To get up there, you use 2 canteens of water within your body to get that canteen of water so you don't go up there in the first place. So what happens is you measure these activities. The next thing you measure is activities superfluous to the task at hand. Now, you measure activities superfluous to the task at hand. Now, here's what that means. Does anybody want to volunteer what they think that means? What are activities superfluous to the task?
Just general entertainment, amusement, that kind of thing, don't
Yeah, that's superfluous.
Superfluous, there's no task, right? Otherwise the task is to eliminate anything.
All right. Does anybody else want to say anything about it? No, I'll tell you what that means. That means if you go out to fly a kite one day, you ever fly a kite? And you get on a bus and you go all the way out there and then it rains. Badly, heavily. And you say, oh, darn it, or fiddly dee, or shit, or whatever you say. That doesn't stop the rain. And that would be activities, action, more than necessary to fly a kite. You don't need it. If you get a flat tire and you say, God damn it, I just had a tire and I bought it and all that, well, the best thing is get out of your car and put the other tire on. That would be essential. And if you can afford it, you pick up a phone and say, get down here and change. You put it on somebody else's back. And you use money to pay them off. That's another way. Now, so you measure all of those factors. Then you take their beliefs. They believe that the potato was put there by the water god because the water god was angry at the banana god. The banana god made it rain on Wednesdays, and that made this god mad. And all of that bullshit is what we call cerebral clutter of the tribe. You think you know what I mean? They build up a bunch of cerebral clutter. That is, they talk to their bananas, and they talk to certain things. They placate the sea. They go down, they hope that the sea won't be bad next year and generate tidal waves, and you build up non-essential verbal clutter, okay? Now, and then you add up the efficiency of one island against the other, because when you go to another planet, and I say, well, what kind of society do they have? What is the efficiency ratio of the society? If they have this much arable land area, and they maintain a population that can eat off that, they're all right. But if they let that population, too many people grow, there won't be enough bananas to go around. So you have to maintain some kind of eco-balance. All right. Now the folk ways. You know what that means? Who marries who and what ceremonies you do when a guy dies. You bury the arrowheads in his fur, and you bury his favorite hat with him. That would be depriving a tribe of some possibly useful equipment. So we talk about that in terms of energy expenditure toward a non-functional gain. Now, are there any problems with that kind of thinking in relation to anthropology? I didn't go into it all, which I'm going to go into more. But I'd like to know whether you want to raise questions about that now.
Is there any, I don't know, is there any importance to what's the importance of anthropology?
What is the what?
Is there any importance in anthropology?
Is there any importance?
What's the point of doing
Yeah.
this?
Well, the point is, deals with the evolution of culture.
Yeah.
So, in the study of man and his technological climb, okay? You draw the technological climb, and then you draw this line. There's non-technological climb, religion, superstition, hanging plastic Jesus in your car. You draw all of the non-technological, the technological thing, the non-technological are downward trends. Do you see that? In other words, if you have a machine that doesn't work too well and you yell, it's better to pick up a can of oil and oil it, if that's what it is, instead of yelling. So that would be technological. Technological is where you break a leg and you make a crutch out of wood. That would be a technological solution. But sitting under bay leaves for 3 months in the sun doesn't really help cure your broken leg. That would be patterns unrelated. Is that all right? Now, if I send you on a submarine, an expedition, and the cable, those gadgets they lower into the water, the spheres, you ever seen them? They lower them into the ocean depths, maybe bathysphere, a mile down, and Paulette cuts the cable, and it falls deep into a trench. And you say, geez, I hope I'm out of here. There's no way. See, because a ship that lowers you into the sea doesn't have 67 other bathyspheres and rescue equipment also included in the expedition. They also don't have a bathysphere joined by an airlock and another bathysphere joined to that and another joined to that, separate units that are dropped together. If anything goes wrong, you can climb into other units. You know what I mean? That would be redundancy, safety. Does that make sense to you? Extra gas in the car, whatever it is. So instead of just lowering some poor bastard to the bottom of the sea, you do it redundantly with additional safety equipment. Okay. But we get back to anthropology. Then you try to find out how it is that they always worship the guava instead of all the other fruits. And they say once a king was sick and we were out of food and we fed him guava and he got well. You can find out how these customs came to be, how it is that we evolve certain language habits. And then when you deliver the information on anthropology, you just show charts. And you show their music, and you show this. For example, I mentioned this many times in sessions. Some of the Great Plains Indians of the West have dances that they do around the fire. And the dance, like I indicated, is this. You know it? And there's a bird, a turkey, kind of a turkey that walks like that. Did you know that? And that's where they got the dance. So you show all of that. And you show how all of their customs, you try, this is a very difficult job to do, try to link up the connections of their customs and the major influences that primarily affected those customs. You want some paper, John, of any kind? All right. So you show all that. And in that way you build a chain linking early systems of society and the technological growth and the primitive growth, how it goes through all the technological society. As we come to, say, 1914, we had a pretty high degree of technology, even in 1914. But you show how the superstitions and the folkways still come from the primitive tribes and have clung to that society. And you try to show how it is that 20th century man, even though he walks on the moon, may take a plastic Jesus with him on the moon. You show how it is that he does that. What the factors are that makes him do that. Is there anybody here that thinks they know why a man in the space age would spit on his telescope and wish it a lot of luck? I mean, people do that occasionally.
Positive thinking gives him a positive attitude. The luck's going to be with
Does it
him.
mean that he may not have a positive attitude?
Right.
He has a degree of uncertainty.
Yeah, he's uncertain. He may be negative. It's to build his
Uncertainty
positive.
sometimes may cause that as a prime effector to carry on habits. Law, even back then, they weren't very useful. They weren't useful to the tribe, but you can't take them away from the tribe. That's something you can't do. All right. Now, this is a description of anthropology. Now, what do you feel that description may lack? At least compressed. There are other things to talk about.
It doesn't contain any solution. I mean, it's like studying economics and political science. Those things don't contain any solutions.
Oh,
You know.
we don't consider the early stages of man with a solution in mind. When we go to, if I go to New Guinea, I go to some place, I go to a Seminole Indian village, they don't send me there to modify the village. The school says, go and study the customs of the Seminole Indians. Now, the Seminole Indian, one of the arguments I had with this anthropologist, she said that primitive people were happier than we are in our technological civilization. And I asked her whether or not she can show me anything that indicates that. The reason I said that they were not, she said, do you have any evidence to show that they were not? And I said that if they hand you the pipe of peace, and they come as a friend, you say, I don't smoke, it's bad for the lungs, but I agree with you, the peace is essential. They don't sit back and say, well, that's your custom, and that's interesting, as long as you come with the same intention. They have no shades of gray. If you don't drink their bowl of fly soup when they offer it to you, if you push it away, you've offended the chief. But I'm sure that if people came from another planet and we offered them some meat and they say we're vegetarians, we say, but what is such a vegetarian? Whip up some fresh vegetables. We would not be offended. And so primitive people tend to project a hell of a lot.
But in happiness in terms of their stress, perhaps, I mean, if one wants to use the level of stress in their lives as a measure, as perhaps one measure of happiness, might, under certain circumstances, some primitive people be better off than, it might depend on the tribe one is studying.
Yes, it might be. It might be, but they're not happier because they're primitive. They may be happier, in your sense, because they had an island, they had a low population density and a lot of food, but not because they're primitive. Primitive means less able to cope with problems. Before the outrigger canoe, a lot of boats were overturned in the sea. A lot of people drowned. Now, people tell me that the primitives at least worked out the outrigger canoe. I don't think the primitives did. I think some primitive worked on the outrigger canoe, and the others were supported by that idea. Some primitives probably invented the javelin, or modified a stick that they throw. Some primitives may have added the bow and arrow to the tribe, which could have enhanced the survival of the tribe. But happiness is a method. When a primitive's wife doesn't behave, he doesn't walk over and say, now look, he says, if you don't behave, we can't get the job done. So the primitives work it out real well. When John gets married and he tells you what to do, you do it, or they'll hang you up by your hair. You understand what I mean? So they got it in store. A lot of primitive tribes are not so free and democratic. They don't sit around and discuss anything. The witch doctor says this is the way it is. And you say, I wonder at that. That is discouraged. Therefore, if happiness means, if by happiness you mean from awakening to sleep, the amount of stress that occurs in that person, pain, is one way of measuring it. Now, is the chief happy because he has his javelin in his hut? We say that happiness is a very interesting thing. If you're going to deal with that, I'll try to give you a description of it. If I were to give you a brand new Mercedes, I'd say, how old are you?
14.
All right, and we worked it out so you can drive it, you know what I mean? Through town and all that, you're able to do that. I think you'd be very happy. For what? And then after 3 years, you'd get in your Mercedes and drive around. Yeah, I don't think you'd, gosh, it's nice to have a Mercedes. It's only in the beginning. When somebody gets you a new toy, the minute you shove that electric train in your closet, you're even. You know what I mean? When you get a bunch of lenses from a scientific company, you got them all out on the table. After you fiddle with it, and you shove them on a shelf, that's the end of that period. See, take them off the shelf the second time, unless you have a goal in mind. Do you know what that means? That means that if Paul makes a boat for me, I sail it around in Biscayne Bay, and then I've sailed it in Biscayne Bay. And I may enjoy doing that weekends, but if he ordered me to do it every day of my life, I may not enjoy it. But if I have a goal, I want to go to the Exuma Islands, then I'm going somewhere. And that the journey from here to there may have elements in it that make me feel good because I'm getting somewhere. But if a storm comes, that interferes with it. It interferes with the kind of happiness. Like if you go to see the South Seas on a trip, and there's a fog all through the area, and you're traveling on a boat, and the guy says, that's Tonga, the island, and you say, what island? There, so you can't see it. So that would be an interference factor. So whenever I go on a boat, I get on the boat, and the guy says it's foggy, I go downstairs and leave. You know what I mean? I don't say, shit, now I can't see the islands I came to see. So through a system of a certain type of maturation in attitudes, the way you grow up and think about things. If you want to go bicycle riding with the kids and your bike is gone and nobody can lend your bike, they stole it. Then you better go to a movie instead of sit home and say, shit, I can't go, they're all out there bike riding. That's the unhealthy thing. Finding something else to do.